we've really been able to meet as a group. We have as members present Charles Lawrence, myself, Deb Hagan, Bill Thompson, excuse me, Phyllis Ibbotson, Clint Clements, and David Stewart. I received a call from Paul Duarte, and he's indicated he cannot attend because he can't see the screen anyways. So.
Okay, before we begin, can everybody see my screen all right?
Yes,
Yes, but I think what we want is, you have the aquaculture section up. Do you have the working draft 1/18/22 that the three of us worked on together?
It'd be fastest if you send it to me.
Okay.
Just real quick, that way I know I'm on the right thing. Sorry, guys, I'm just.
No worries. Sorry, apologies for the delay.
You know, I believe the aquaculture element of this is probably going to be its own evening. It's rather a massive piece of documentation. And it's all brand new, so.
So just as preamble here, Deb and I were speaking earlier, I think maybe the purpose of this meeting should just be to acquaint everybody with what it is we've done and go through it in a broader scale.
I have no problem with that. As a matter of fact, I have no problem putting the control of the meeting into the three of your hands, and I'll sit back as just a participant, and I'll try to identify people that may be putting their hands up. We have three other attendees in the audience. We have a phone number. We have, well, it says Clelly Clements, but I'm somewhat suspected. Might that be your wife as well? Is she on board as well? And then
Yeah,
a Liz and a Mary Kay. So we have a phone number that's there, and for me to see the screen and to keep that up is going to be difficult. I only have one screen, but however you feel best. You guys have really worked your butts off on this, and I appreciate that. And so I hand the meeting over to the three of you.
All right. Bear with me.
So Deb, you're going to send me that document.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, I just emailed it to you.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, so while Clint retrieves that, what I did was I just put together some notes to take us through the working draft, not line by line, but in sections, to let you know one of three things. There are no significant changes. It's largely as you last saw it. There are significant changes, and here's a brief description of what they are. And this is an area that is maybe unchanged, changed, but an area that really needs input or needs further development because of recent situations, especially with moorings. So the thing that you'll notice immediately, the thing that's obvious, is just an updated format. We simply changed the font, made some of the fonts a little bit bigger, renumbered the sections. And I think we still need to play around with it a little bit because the way some things fall on the page, it's still a little awkward, but I feel like it's much more readable now with the new bigger font, and we can work on the details of this as we go. So if we can just start, well, as you can see, the table of contents, things are numbered a little bit differently than they were. We don't have anything to show you for the signature page right now. We can kind of revisit that later. Clint's, the introduction is expanded a bit. In the first paragraph is largely as you last saw it. The second paragraph there, we wanted to establish a culture of collaboration, since the Harbor Commission can't really exist in a vacuum. So, we just talk about, involving the other town committees and boards to participate in regulation of the harbor management. And so while we're doing this, I don't know if I should kind of stop at every section and see if you guys have input. If you want me just to run through the whole thing, what's the best thing to do? Should I just check in with you guys periodically?
Yes, I think that's a good plan. Just sort of give us an overview.
Yeah,
Go
so
from
far, so good.
Okay, all right. Well, holler at me if I forget. Okay, so moving on to section 1.2, definition and purpose. It is largely the same as when we last reviewed it together. If there are any changes, it's really just in some syntax. The old section B methodology is now section 1.3 methodology. And again, the changes are mostly just some wording and syntax. The old section 2, which was background, is now section 2.0, harbor and coastal waters description. And let me say that when we started getting together, the first time we got together in November, I think it was, we were presented with a version of the document that didn't really line up with the version of the document that was on the town's website. And so a couple meetings into Clint, Bill, and I getting together, we actually compared those two existing documents and pulled from each of them to get the document that we presented to you here. And we just really went old school with it. We literally printed it out and cut it up into strips, and just to make sure that we weren't losing anything that had been there previously. Based on dates in the documents, it was clear that the document on the website was a newer version than the one we had been working off of. So we went ahead and took the liberty to draw on it. So like I said, the old section 2 background is now 2.0, harbor and coastal waters description. And pretty much water depth, extreme fetch, and water velocities, those have no significant changes. Shoals and other navigational hazards, we added the detail from the version that is available on the town's website, but that was missing from the document that we were originally working off of. And, again, if you guys could, it's A, B, C, D, E through G there with some detail. And so I think what we need from you guys and also residents is just to check those to make sure that there are no important omissions and that what we have is accurate. Okay. The dredged areas, again, largely the same. What we have from the old versions is that the main channel to Fall River was last dredged in 2004. And if anyone can confirm that that's correct, or if anyone knows who would have the information as to whether or not that's correct. So we need to check that at some point.
I can tell you that, I've been around here since 2006 is when I bought the house, but I've sailed that bay for the last 30 years. And I don't remember anything major taking place up in there. Although obviously if they dredge in the wintertime, I wouldn't necessarily know about it.
Oh,
Yeah,
and as you're saying that, I'm thinking that it would had to have been permitted with CRMC. And so maybe we can,
or Army Corps of Engineers, actually,
Okay.
more likely.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I moved here in 2004, and it seems to me like that dredging occurred a few years after that. But
Okay, so you remember that, Phyllis?
I do, or I remember a lot of talk about it, and it was after being here for a couple of years.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's something we're going to have a lot of fact checking to do. That's just one of the things.
Yeah, I was thinking the previous that you were saying to check for the shoals and
Mhm.
navigational hazards, maybe the harbor master, because he's probably the most familiar with all those. He could check our list.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if he's in tonight, but it won't be difficult to get him up to speed on this and to make that request. And in fact, he has a copy of this. So
He's not a participant at this point in time unless he's the phone number, but he generally shows up as Tyler.
okay. All right. So then after dredged areas, navigational channels, and fairways, again, no significant changes. Our first significant change is that coastal wildlife and/or conservation areas, as well as biological habits, have been moved here from another section. Previously, they were under water quality, and they're largely descriptive, and so it kind of made sense to put them in here with the physical characteristics of the harbor. I have that Monast Island is highlighted here because I hadn't heard of it until the recent town council meeting when they talked about ownership of it. So now I actually believe that it exists and it's in North Tiverton. Let's see, and except from some changes in the language, just some wordage, these are largely the same as you saw them last, just in a new location. Biological habitats, there's an addition of the reference to the Save the Bay eelgrass restoration, and that was in the version on the town's website. And it's not in here yet, but I think that we should include the very recent Sepauwett Marsh Restoration that has been occurring, that occurred this past fall, I believe.
You mean the movement of the marshes upland in anticipation of sea level rise?
No, they came in and altered or got various isolated bodies of water to be connected to more of the marsh. Because those isolated bodies can just go dead and it'll just kill the marsh there. And so they came in, and some of it they had a machine for, some of it were digging with shovels just to get big enough ones together so they could connect at low tide, right? High tide, they're all going to get flooded, or at least a spring tide.
So there's a Sepauwett Marsh Restoration. And what was the restoration that was being done down by DEM or down by the bridge? You know what I'm talking
They did a lot of work on the west side, on the marsh over there. So maybe that's what you saw.
Up
Then
there's
it came over here to
the new parking area and whatnot.
Oh,
that
okay.
they did in anticipation of the sea level rise. They
Yes.
did some plantings or something up there. I'm not sure what exactly it was called.
Yeah. Well, they did. That precedes the most recent intervention, which was like last fall. That was a couple of years ago, if memory serves.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Well,
I didn't know that they did any planting there. They just prevented cars from being able to drive down the beach. And they built the parking lot.
Are you talking about Grinnell's?
No. Sepauwett Marsh by the bridge.
Because I know Grinnell's, they planted some grass and stuff.
Oh, right.
All right, so we can, I think it's important to just to make note of the efforts to keep the marsh healthy.
Yeah.
And so Chip, maybe we'll circle back and get some more detail from you. So that
Okay,
we
do you
can-
have in this about fogland and planting the grass to hold the dune?
No, I don't believe we have anything in there.
Oh, that happened too.
Okay, so I'll make a note of it here, Chip.
Oh,
Okay. Okay,
And I-
Fogland too.
Yeah, fogland.
Okay.
What we did was plant the beach grass, so it would stabilize those dunes that are there.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that pretty much concludes section 2.1. Section 2.2 are the CRMC water types. And again, those are pretty much as they were.
So
Section,
are those just quotes lifted and taken?
I don't know if they're worded exactly, if they're quoted from the Red Book. We pretty much took them as they were from the old version, maybe just changed like the syntax just a little bit.
Right.
But you know, it's worth double checking to make sure that
Yeah, just check with the Red Book.
yeah. Okay.
And I believe I sent the Red Book that they have, they published, you know, an electronic Red Book, if you will. And I believe I shared that with everybody, although it may have been long enough ago that some of my new members may not have been there. So let me pop an email to myself to do that.
Okay.
And
great.
Tyler, by the way, is on panel now.
Okay. And it's the Red Book's available on CRMC's website too.
Mhm.
Okay, so section 2.3 water quality. The significant change is that this is now just the DEM water quality classification and descriptions. Previously, those two sections, coastal wildlife and conservation and biological habitats, was under water quality. So now it just describes the DEM water quality classifications. Section 2.4 used to be section D, current uses, and we just kind of took out the word current uses, and now it is harbor structures, current mooring and mooring areas, shoreline access points, and we'll go through them as we do this. So 2.4, harbor structures and navigation channel. And again, it's just really as it was. We removed some of the wordiness and kind of decided to just let the appendix speak for themselves instead of offering a verbal description of the maps. Just go to the maps and you can find the information there. If anyone thinks that omission is an error, let us know. We can always add it back in. Section 2.5, current moorings and mooring areas. This section has the updated mooring numbers based on the end of the 2021 boating season. Tyler provided those, so those should be accurate. This does not address like really any of the mooring issues that we're having. The old mooring issues falls under a later category. So this one really just says how many current moorings we have. Ben Getch suggested, and I think it's the right thing to do, for us to take the time to actually map all of the town's moorings into Google Maps or some kind of program. Probably Google Earth or Google Maps makes the most sense. And include that in the appendix too. I think it'll aid us greatly as aquaculture gets developed in our area. And then the other thing I want to mention is, we talk about the 3-to-1 ratio of resident to non-resident moorings, and that it's a goal in the town to achieve that, but we don't really we don't lay out any plan to do it. And so I feel like that needs to be developed. Otherwise, it's not achievable if it's only an idea. We need a plan. So then we are going to shoreline access points.
Hey,
No
Deb,
Sorry.
I just have a quick question. Was to map out all the moorings, would that require the device that Ben was describing that he was going to loan to us?
No, that mapping tool shows it's just a data layer that shows you where the CRMC water types are. And I have it, so I can share it with everyone. It's something that you would have to actually upload to use the tool. And it's handy, and I think it's an important tool for us to have. So I can share that with everyone so that everyone has access to it. Ben suggested we just use Google Earth or Google Maps. That's what CRMC does.
Oh, I think I'm remembering a different thing that it might have been to figure out the coordinates of aquaculture lease where the buoys were. Wasn't there something like a handheld device that?
Oh, yes, the bad elf.
The bad elf, right? Of course. How could I forget?
Yeah. Yeah. So he said that, and he would be willing to let us use it to see if it was something that we should recommend the town have. It might be a tool that Tyler would have on the boat. That's just a handheld GPS device that would help locate boundaries or lease boundaries.
Is that bigger device is that device big compared to what a boat has? I know there's ones that are about a foot or 18 inches across and shaped like a dome.
So let me just interject here for a second. All GPS are going to be reading the same data off the satellites. So it really doesn't matter.
Yes, it does, because those are more accurate.
Okay.
The
So
big ones are more accurate. And I don't know if we need that accuracy, but they are more accurate, quite a lot more.
yeah. So the other thing that you'll notice as we go along in this document is that we've put in hyperlinks in here so that you can reference different material across the web without having to go search for it in different places. So if we're talking about a Google map that has all the existing moorings in it, then we should include it as a hyperlink in here, which precludes this document from being useful in a printed format, or as useful, I should say.
As long as you have the address to where the link's pointing to, then somebody could at least look it up.
Exactly. So I think as we go into the 21st century here, the idea is that if somebody wants this information, wants to read the harbor management plan, they can only read it on the town's website, which will have the links available to it, rather than printing it out and trying to deal with it that way. But I just wanted to point out that there will be hyperlinks in here. And since we're talking about Google Maps, that would have to be a hyperlink.
Okay, great. And I think that it would also be something that could exist as a living document and could be updated as new moorings are added, moorings are dropped. It can be updated yearly.
So, Tyler, you're online here. I can't see you, but I'm wondering if it wouldn't be useful, since you have the database, could you possibly create a single Google map that has all the mooring coordinates on it, because you'd be the one that would be responsible for keeping it updated.
Yeah, I already have all the moorings mapped out on my GPS. So we just have to take the card out and plug it into the computer.
Okay,
Oh, fantastic.
that'd be great. Thank
And
you.
then there is a list on the town website that's updated every year with the mooring information.
Yeah, but what we're looking at here is we're trying to create a link. I guess that's always updated. So as you, let's see if we can synthesize the methodology here. So it would be you taking the coordinates, putting it onto whatever control you have over this particular link. That gets updated automatically so that when somebody goes to the harbor management plan, clicks on that link, they always have the most updated information. Does that make sense? It becomes a common database.
Yeah, I guess that would just be copy and pasting what I do every year to this hyperlink.
Yeah, so if we want to put it into a shared database so that anybody who's clicking on the management plan can see the most up-to-date information. So the entry should start with the harbor master. And we can set you up with that, Tyler.
All right, I mean, I just see it as though what I post every year, you would just have to figure out how to put it on your harbor management plan there. It wouldn't be any different.
Yeah, exactly. But the way in which it goes on, it would go on to a Google Maps that you enter the information on. And then, so when somebody clicks on it, they automatically go to that link. We'll get that set up.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point being is that the information for the coordinates should start with the harbor master. And that way it's completely synthesized through the process.
Great. That's a good plan. Okay. So moving on then, the shoreline access points are the same. They are just in a different table now. Section 2.7 recreation areas. Okay, so this used to be section 5 other uses. And what we have now is sections 2 through 2.7 through 2.11 that describe recreational areas, commercial and recreational fishing, submerged aquatic vegetation and intertidal flats, shoreline zoning districts, and projections of future growth. So under recreational areas, I would say that there are significant changes. We've just really kind of beefed up the description, and we have, if we added Sepauwett Wildlife Management Area. We talked about the updates at Grinnell Beach, added Nanaquacket Pond. And so again, if, you know, it's up to everybody to make sure that we're not missing anything and that what we're describing is accurate.
Can I interrupt there for a second, Deb?
Yeah.
So I happened to see today someone kite surfing inside the marsh area of Sepauwett. Now, I'm not, instead of outside the bridge on the riverside, they were in the inside in the very shallow water. I'm not sure if there's any impact on the area. So do we need to have prohibited activities in these areas? That might be something we want to talk about. We don't have to talk about it now, but I'm just saying it might be something we need to address.
Okay.
The question I had, looking at the Sepauwett Wildlife Management Area, where did this description come from? Is that something you folks worked up, or is that from someplace else?
This is, a lot of this is cut and paste from, to answer your question, Bruce, I can't tell you right now exactly where it came from, but a lot of the document is cut and paste from what we had before and simply rearranged.
Right. And there's one term there, the Sepauwett Waterway. Is that a new term that's been developed? And what is that, the band of water coming from the bridge basically going north in front of your properties and that kind of thing? I'm just trying to figure out what it is.
So it's the connection of the, I've heard the term before this, And it's the connection between the Emily Rucker Wildlife Preserve and the Sipowit Beach.
Emily Rucker Wildlife Preserve is where, please?
It's on the north side, it's on the east of Jack's Island.
Okay,
That's
so
where
it's wrapping all the way around
Exactly.
that whole peninsula.
Yeah, it's essentially like a 2-lane road. That's how somebody described it to me. So it's there's a boat ramp on either end. So you have the boat ramp at 2 Broadway.
Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically is right. And then you have launch areas down by the bridge.
Yeah. The small boat is the ramp by the bridge is not actually an officially acknowledged ramp, is it, or is it?
It's a launch area for kayaks, that sort of thing. You know, if
Okay,
people,
so it's not a ramp, it's a launch area where you can walk down with a carryable boat.
yeah,
Yeah, there's no place there that you could actually back a trailer down with a boat on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I realized that I'm not sure we have a section for boat ramps and launch areas. And it would probably be a good idea to add one.
Unfortunately, a short one.
Well, all the
Still
same.
should have it though. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Okay, are we ready to move on to commercial and recreational fishing?
Yep.
Okay. So this is let's see. There have been some additions to this section, and I received some very detailed input with GPS coordinates for recognized and documented fishing areas. I just got it last week. I haven't had a chance to share it with anyone yet. But we'll be sure to kind of include those for the next version. And I also think
from Deb.
From Kenny Mendez, I think that we should also in this section mention the current aquaculture lease that's in Tiverton, and make note of that too.
Okay, quick
I think
question. Kenny Mendez is who?
He's a Tiverton resident. He's an avid fin fisherman.
So he has coordinates that he has obtained from someplace that are the official fishing or other fishing areas and such?
Yeah, he sent almost like a bibliography of publications that make note of these significant fishing spots.
Okay. So he's giving you a source of it. It's not just somebody's off the cuff opinion. All right.
No, they're some of them are documented. And I mean, to a large extent, a lot of this is based on observation. I wrote the section on Nanaquaca Pond recreation based on, 10 years of looking out the window.
Yeah.
So, and hearing what other people on the pond have to say about what goes on here. So I don't think that observation should be discounted if it can be confirmed by other people. Okay. All right. So the submerged aquatic vegetation and intertidal flats, it was moved here from another section. Offhand, I don't remember exactly where, but there really aren't any significant changes there.
But the CMC doesn't even recognize that any exist.
That's what it said before. So this is largely just what was there before.
Okay.
If we don't need to mention it at all, then we can just get rid of it. I imagine that, it was there before because of CRMC's guidance for the HMPs. I don't know.
Mhm.
Okay. Shoreline zoning districts, no major changes. I think we just cleaned up the wording a little bit.
But we have to add to that, there's actually, we should check the zoning and there's actually a floating waterfront zone, no pun intended. It down along the literally from the boatyard north towards the bridge. I don't believe it's addressed here.
Okay, from Standish or from what was quality?
At least Standish.
Okay,
I have to check it.
okay. Okay. Projections of future growth. Just some minor changes to the wording. Just cleaned up the language a little bit. Okay. Excuse me, I'll get some water. Okay. So then on to section 3, which was section 2 before, issues, goals, and policies. So there's definitely a change in formatting here. We noticed that the version on the town's website, like really, and the version that we were working off of in November 2, really drew from other HMPs, I think Bristol in particular. And what they did was they identified an issue, they stated a goal, and then they had a list of actionable items to implement the goal. And so it was something that could be a format that could be applied to all of these issues of concern. And so we went ahead and ran with that. For the first one, water quality.
I have a question about the first one on that,
Okay,
where it says the potential impacts of sewage pollution from Fall River Treatment Plant, heavy metal pollution from industries in North Fall River, and oil pollution from shipping terminals. Is this, we're just guessing, or is there actual evidence showing that that's pollution? That's where it's coming from.
Tyler, this was taken from the previous harbor management plan, and I don't have the answer for you.
All right, my
don't
thoughts
know.
are just having that in the harbor management plan, blaming other towns. If we don't have any evidence, we probably shouldn't have that in there.
The point is taken. I agree that there shouldn't be anything in here that's not
I wonder if it was taken from the CRMC document. I mean, because they might mention that. Or DEM.
we can look into it and see if we can find.
Yeah,
anything
just
to back that up.
if we're gonna have stuff like this in here, we just need to make sure it's factual.
Good
Right.
point, Tyler. It's a good point.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and after a while, it kind of gets buried. So unless they dredge, then it's not an issue until they dredge again. Yeah, on the shoreline zoning districts, Bruce, you're correct, because it doesn't mention waterfront zoning. I know that area was redesignated as waterfront.
Right.
At least 2 of these things, impact from sewage treatment plant. They still have a treatment plant, there will be an impact. Heavy metals are very long living. They stay in there for a very long time, so they haven't gone away. Oil pollution from the terminals, it's harder to say.
And there's also the scrap metal operation on Brayton Point that is not mentioned here. And I don't know if it's worth mentioning that, because that's going to affect the entire bay if it continues.
Right. Well, interestingly, they no longer have oil pollution from the oil terminal in the north end of Tiverton because it doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
Those tanks are gone.
Okay.
There is no longer the thermal pollution created by the power plant, which isn't even not addressed in here, so we don't need to add it.
Okay.
But unfortunately, that's been replaced by the steel recycling facility there. But so industrial issues tend to be for real.
Yeah.
I had heard that there's still a lot of residue where the oil tanks were in the soil.
There are areas of literally blue soil up on the north end with coal gasification and such, but that's not necessarily leaching into the water.
Which oil tanks are you talking about? Because the oil hub is still active.
Up in Fall River.
Yes.
Yeah, right at the Tiverton line on Bay Street.
Mhm.
That's still an active place.
Well, where I haven't been here long enough to remember the tanks, but I thought they took down some tanks and now it's a village on a hill, or if you will.
The condo.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking further north, right on Bay Street there at the bottom of Judson.
Yeah.
Where the water treatment plant is?
It's right on the side of that pretty much. It's right before it.
Yeah.
Just south of it.
Right,
Yes.
there used to be tanks in North Tiverton. And those aren't there, but these further north are.
Correct.
Yeah, and it would be a surprise if so you can cite both of those. And the Tiverton, you'd have to say it would be whatever is leaching from the soil. Probably still is, but continues to be leaching from the soil or something like that.
Well, it sounds like we need to revisit this first paragraph and maybe pick Tyler's brain a little bit and get some of us who haven't been in town as long, get some more information about that.
One thing that should be mentioned is that the town has undertaken water quality testing. Chip was the lead on that for what, 4 or 5 years, Chip? Quite a few
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
To identify point sources of E. coli bacteria and such.
Yeah, we measured for several different pollutants, so all the ones that URI keeps on their watershed watch for quite a number of years, and then much more recently for bacterial count, because the things that we found high were primarily excess levels of bacteria, like in Sepauwett Marsh, where they were kite surfing today. Anyway,
So would it be useful to have a link here to that database?
yeah, we could do that. Yeah, URI, yeah. Okay, I'll let her know, find the link.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So the next section is sea level rise. Chip, I missed the email that was sent last week or a couple days ago with the list of
Yeah, I'll send you
flooding?
that, and there's that, and there's a slight modification of the paragraph here. It's all minor, so I'll send you
Okay.
both of those.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, yep,
So this section is largely new to the HMP, and Chip will, we'll check in with you.
yep. I'll
You
send
know.
it to Deb, and you can build it in, and then we can review it next time.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay,
Chip, by the way, we strengthened some of the language in this as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take a look.
okay, thank you. Section 3.3 is moorings. I just wanted to say that we do have some consistency things to work with in terms of, in some sections, we're saying in conjunction with the adaptation of the plan. I don't think we necessarily need to repeat that as long as we're consistent throughout the document. So I feel like I don't want to get terribly bogged down in talking about the issues with moorings, because we still have to talk about the type 1 water, the moorings in the type 1 waters. There are the riparian mooring issues that really should be kind of hammered out. So I do think that we need a separate meeting to address moorings. Did I send you guys the email from Ben? So what they said about the type 1 waters is that as long as no new moorings are permitted in those mooring fields, and those moorings aren't transferred, the current owner of the mooring can enjoy it for as long as they want to, and then it'll just be phased out through attrition. Is that the right word?
Mhm.
So, but we're going to have to include all of that in this section too, and it's not there yet. So maybe that should just be on the radar, is that we need to have a meeting soon to address moorings. Clint, we were talking about this. Am I not saying the right thing?
Yeah, no, that's correct. I think the issue is that there are a number of vague, there's some really fuzzy areas within the town ordinance. And sometimes it's referred to as should, and sometimes it's referred to as shall. And those are two completely different meanings. So what we need to do is we need to clarify a whole range of issues that regard moorings, so that, the whole thing is put into a box, if you will, so that we don't end up in the spot where there's any ambiguity whatsoever. And my personal feeling is that that's going to take a working, subcommittee to really get something in front of this committee, so that we have something to really talk about that's concrete.
Okay. Thanks, Clint.
Let me just say this right now, that Don Libya, I just saw an email a couple of days ago, wrote a rather lengthy discussion outlining the discrepancies and some of the vagueness that's included between the harbor management plan, the red book, and the ordinances. And they all need, I guess the point is they all need to get in synchronization.
Okay.
So I haven't had a chance to fully dive into it yet, but I think it's going to be a group effort to get that squared away.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be a big effort.
And better delineate the separation between riparian moorings and rented moorings.
Yeah, there are a whole host of issues that are it's a whole book, if you will. So, but the point is to eliminate, the fuzzy areas that are involved in it. So just to make sure everything is completely in synchronization with the state and with the ordinances in the town.
Well, I think it should be, ideally, it would be easy for someone who wants to get a mooring to be able to read a document and figure out pretty quickly what they can and can't do and how long it will take and that kind of thing. Whereas now it's like everyone says, it's a bit fuzzy.
Yeah, there's a whole range of issues that are involved in there. So why don't we just say, take the block that says mooring and say, let's put that into a working group and come back with some recommendations.
Okay, that sounds good. Should we, I do feel like that needs to be a priority to develop that. Should we go ahead and decide who is going to do that so that it can move forward? I mean, if it's fine if it's those of us who have been working on it anyway. I just want to provide the opportunity for somebody else to jump in if they want to. Don't want to deprive anyone the opportunity to participate.
You want that heated up more?
It was a mooring subcommittee several years back when prior to Tyler, Dave and I and such worked on, and we submitted it to a town manager who I think, sat on it. I'll do research on my archives because I know I've seen the files relative to the harbor, or rather the mooring subcommittee that may or may not address all the issues, but it may address some.
Okay.
I'll certainly share that with people. I can assure you they're not in an electronic format, though. Not in my machine, anyways.
That's
Was
okay.
this when you were trying to get a pump out boat for the town?
No, we were at the time trying to tune up the overall operational elements of the moorings. You came up the gradient feet structure. Yeah, we were trying to get the pump out boat as well, but it wasn't tied into the pump out boat goal at the time.
Okay.
It was just trying to make the documents work better.
So I'll raise my hand on this one. Anybody else want to join me on this project?
I will.
Bill just did.
I don't know.
Bill,
Phyllis, did you say
Who's
you
got their
were?
hand up?
No, I was just.
Don
listening.
Libby, Don Libby, do you ever? It looks like Don's got his hand up. Can someone unmute Don?
That's my hand up.
Andrew. Okay, there we go. You're verbal.
By the way, 3 seems to be a really good work, trying to get
Don,
everybody
you
together.
now have your. Mhm.
Yeah, trying to get too many people together makes it difficult. So 3 is probably the maximum we want to get
Well,
involved.
we also have to watch our quorum issues.
Did Dawn want to say something?
Don, you
no.
had your hand up.
If I'm still on mute?
Okay.
No.
No, okay, yeah, I'm
No, you're
happy to assist informally or formally, whatever you would like.
Okay. Well, who are the 3 from the Harbor Commission? Clint, Bill, and Paul. Is that what you said?
I don't think Paul, I mean, he's not at the meeting right now, but I don't think he had volunteered for that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Phyllis?
That was talking, who was that? Was that Libby?
Don Libby spoke for a moment.
So is he the third?
And he said he's willing to participate formally or informally, whichever. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a member of the public participate in working on an element of it. Don certainly brings a lot to the table with regards to his training and his articulation.
Yeah, he's been invaluable.
Yeah. And I can help too if it's just too so far from the commission. I can jump in also.
I'm happy to get involved.
Okay.
Third member. That's not.
Okay, great. Okay, so Dave, Bill, and Clint.
Yeah, and if you could just let me know when they are, because I'd be like to be part of it too.
Okay.
Good.
Great. Okay, so moving on then to commercial fishing. No significant changes were made to this section. Public access. There were significant changes made, and they were largely borrowed from Bristol's harbor management plan. So everyone should read through those and make sure that everything is agreed upon. And we also touch on making sure that permitting is obtained from CRMC before maintenance is done. Let's see.
By anybody, whether it be the town or anybody else. On your implementation, your PA2, about having a subcommittee. I mean, Paul, that is something Paul was working on, and it was, as was pointed out to Dave and I, technically the Recreation Committee has an obligation to assist and maintain or preserve rights of way of all kinds, including those to the water, which I think was a surprise to the Rec Committee Chair, right, David? Did you reach out to him?
Actually, Phyllis and I are meeting with him on a Saturday morning.
Okay, cool.
We can discuss that or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe, maybe when we get back to working on this for the next round of revisions, we can just reach out to Paul for his input.
Mhm.
Since I know we're meeting on Thursday and that's doesn't work for him. Okay, moving on then. Vehicular parking really just changes in some syntax. And out of all of this, the vehicular parking was the hardest one for me because it just is not something that I've ever thought of, because all I do is drive through that area. I don't have to usually try to find a park unless I'm just stopping for a coffee. So any input from residents or other commission members would really be appreciated there. Again, fairways, we just kind of cleaned up the language a little bit. And waterfront development, the one that, this is largely taken from the previous version. The one that really stumped me was implementation WD2 require that a party applying to CRMC for an assent must provide the THC with a current copy of the application for review. And you guys, I won't read it out loud, but you guys can look at that. It doesn't seem like that's something that's in practice. And I wasn't sure why it was in there. And some input from Bruce or, you guys who have been involved longer would be helpful.
Those who were here when the condos were developed, I wasn't here at the time, can speak to that, but anytime someone applies for a CRMC assent, a copy of it is sent to me, to the Harbor Commission's chair, who happens at this point to be me. And it's shared obviously with the board. There's not that much waterfront development taking place. It's part of why you've not seen anything. Dave, you were on the, when they did the condos, were you on the commission?
No, that was before my time.
I thought we were old.
We are old, but that was a while ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 25 years ago, so.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, we have been advised when people are going to do docks and that type of thing.
Right.
Okay.
But they don't generally, unless someone is developing a raw piece of land and getting coastal assents and such, have any input given to us. It's, not someone remodeling their house and that sort of thing, isn't the kind of thing that goes before coastal unless someone further intrudes on the coastal feature. Case in point, 2 doors over, my neighbor flattened his house, took it right out of the ground, but he's 200 feet back from the bluff. So he's actually out of the coastal jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't have triggered anything to come to us. So that's why you haven't seen anything, Deb. It's not that it's not there, but and it's good to have it in there because it keeps us in, keeps the future people in play.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, good to know.
I have a question there. So in WD2, it now says they must provide it, but we get it from CMRC, right, Bruce?
Right.
So do we want to say that we'll receive one from CRC and has to require that they must submit us one?
Well, okay, you're suggesting that's duplicative.
It says require that a party apply to who does apply must provide us with a copy. And I'm thinking, well, as far as I know, anytime something's happened there, CMRC shares a copy with us.
They do.
And
And
there's
so that,
some formal recognition of that being true, then seems like that's what we should say here.
So Chip, you're saying that it's not a requirement of the applicant. It's just something that CRMC does as part of their practice,
Yes, that's my
that they
understanding.
send applications for assent to Tiverton or to all the municipalities?
At least to Tiverton, I know. Bruce, do you know that they do it to all the municipalities?
I presume they do it with all the municipalities that are signed up with them, but I don't know. The CRMC tries to have a point contact person with each community. And I know they send it to the town administrator when they have things, because it gets forwarded to me by them as well. But we've added me on as a direct contact. We've added the chair of the Harbor Commission on as direct contact.
Okay, well, it's easy enough to check in with CRMC to find out what the practice is, to make sure that we're reflecting it accurately.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Fairways, just change to the wording a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards too far. We've already done this. Okay. For Fairway Section 3.8, we generalized the language a little bit and took out some of the detail. And so I think it's important that you guys take a look at that section and make sure that our omissions weren't in error. If we need to add anything back in, we can. So if you could, take a look at the old Fairway section and the new Fairway section, and if we need to put some of that detail back in, to please let us know. No significant changes to coordination of jurisdictional responsibilities. Excuse me, I'm getting tired and a little tongue-tied now. Section 310, funding harbor and coastal waters management. We talk about the kayak rack and the dinghy dock permits and those fees. But at the last meeting, Bruce, you said that fees collected for moorings, and then, if there were dinghy dock fees or kayak rack fees, that they just go into the town's general fund. They don't necessarily come, like, we don't get to decide how that money helps the harbor. So I think we might have to go back and change what we said here.
Right. I mean, I look at that and I laughed and said, love to see that happen, because we bring in about $60,000. If we got half of that, it'd be lovely. Actually bringing more than that. Tyler can tell us more accurately, but literally, we had one individual that wanted to donate money to the Harbor Commission specifically decades ago, back when I was first on the board. And he's wanted to donate $1,000 of cash, or had someone donate $1,000, wanted to have someone donate in exchange for releasing his boat to the person. And rather than, if that cash had been given to the town for the purposes of Harbor Commission, we would never have seen it. So instead, we took something in kind that we couldn't control, which was fuel. But yeah, any monies raised in town are in fact go to the general fund. That's just the rules. Any parking fees, any docking fees, any of that go to the general fund. It doesn't go to the entity that raises the money.
Right. Okay. And I think that it's something that we should discuss, and maybe it requires a little bit of education on my part, to learn how expenses are budgeted. And I'm thinking specifically, if the dinghy dock and the kayak racks and if aquaculture development, if all of these things create a greater load of responsibility for Tyler, is it up to the Harbor Commission to then go to the budget committee and say, he deserves more money, if there's more time involved, so I don't know how that works, but I'm interested in learning about it and making sure that the town is able to properly monitor and do the things that we're outlining here.
Your timing is, go ahead, Tyler.
No, this is David. I met with, I saw Ed today at the planning board, and Jennifer is out on maternity leave, but he's going to get in touch with her. Phyllis and I are meeting with Stu from the Recreation board on Saturday, and I think a lot of this stuff has to be sorted out. I mean, because there's a lot of people. Also, we've talked to Renee Jones from the Economic, whatever it is,
Development Commission.
Development Commission. So there's a lot of moving parts in this thing, and we're in the process of really trying to sort it all out, because we are going to have potential income from the dinghy docks, kayak racks, and maybe ideally floats with other small boats on it. But the whole thing is going to get tied in, obviously, with moorings and that. But I would assume it would be anyway.
The process of funding the Harbor Commission is a budgetary process. In point of fact, on Saturday morning, Tyler is going to be before the Budget Commission. Tyler, I'm not going to be able to be there. I'm going to be out of town. But he's prepared and presented a budget through the town administrator. And I believe, Tyler, that's a Zoom, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah, that's Zoom meeting.
And so you can see how Tyler presents a fairly detailed budget each year, line by line, they go through it. Interestingly, any of Tyler's raises he's gotten in the past years are because the Budget Commission or the town council say, you deserve a raise, and give him a raise, because he doesn't ask for them, he just gets them because they're earned. And that's when I saw that your 50% minimum user fee for that's a great goal. If we can push that through, I'm not sure that you could. I doubt you could.
I'm not sure we added. I don't think that we added that.
Oh, really?
Unless we borrowed it from Bristol.
I think it was from Bristol.
Okay. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to try to go to the budget meeting, the budget committee meeting, then, if it's Zoom.
Yep.
Because I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. So Tyler puts together a budget. Does that ever get discussed by the commission as a whole? Like, is it presented in some way, or what's the normal practice of that?
Some years he's presented it to us, other years he hasn't. He's become very adept at it, and it's reviewed by the Budget Commission. I mean, sometimes he's needed some backing from us with regards to specific things, such as the engines. That was a $50,000 whack. But he got him. His trailer, he put forward a very good argument and succeeded in getting the capital budget for his trailer because it was needed badly. So Tyler's become very adept and very competent with the
Awesome.
Budgeting process.
Okay. Okay. So that kind of concludes what everyone's familiar with. Well, that's the first 18 pages of the document, right? So we still have all the appendices and the aquaculture section. So I was realizing earlier today that the work that Bill and Clint did for the aquaculture section was distributed to the Harbor Commission members, but I haven't done the minutes yet, and I haven't posted the supporting documents from our last meeting on the SOS website yet. And so the public doesn't really have access to that. So we can kind of just offer the same thing that we've done before, that you guys have it. Since it was distributed to you, more work has been done to it. And so, if you have any comments or input that you want to give us now, for the next round of work on it, awesome. You know, if not, then I think that it's just, you know, back to it, another round of revisions, and then when we meet to talk about it again, it'll be more of a public document.
So Deb, let me just jump in here for 1 second.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
the idea behind the aquaculture section was to solidify as best we could the public documentation that's been given but in the Red Book by CRMC, and put it all into one place so that people wouldn't have to make it an inclusive resource for people that want to know anything about aquaculture. So that therefore there's a lot of definitions in there. There are direct quotes from CRMC. There's direct quotes out of the Red Book. There's links to all of those. There's definitions. So we're trying to make it as transparent and also get all the information that one could want at the town level in one place. So that was the purpose of the section.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm questioning that I haven't had a chance to see what the SAMP proposal was relative to modifying the aquaculture application process and contrast it with this. I don't know if anyone else has. I mean, certainly this is a substantial and greatly improved, to say the least, documentation of our desires. I think some of it, well, no harm in reaching for what we're asking for, and the worst thing that can happen is CRMC says not that. But you know, one of the interesting issues I look at it, I'm the guy that wants more notice, but I'm looking at one element of it is the requirement of postal service to property located within 1,000 feet of the mean high water mark. That's 5 times the CRMC's jurisdictional limit. If we can get it, wonderful, but that's a huge radius in some instances, recognizing that 99, the legality and reality of the situation. It's one of the arguments I always make. The legalities is this, the reality is something different. You could make the argument that would be something like that would be very difficult, but the reality is in that the vast majority of the sites where an aquaculture site might actually be proposed and go forward past just preliminary, usually is not within that densely populated area. Although as I say that, I'm thinking now about the Nanaquaka Pond site and the one that was proposed in there in the Winnisimmett Marsh area, Mooring area. That would have involved the entire neighborhood. But yeah, until this is available to the public document, because we're on Zoom, even though it's going up on the screen, at least we're seeing it there. I'm not sure we can really talk about it. The last thing I want is have someone come down on us an open meetings violation. Still getting yelled at by my agendas, by the way. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, write up paragraphs with each item or what, but.
Well, I think that unless anyone has anything else to add, I think that we should leave it there for tonight, and then we'll kind of circle back when the next round of revisions is made. And again, if the members of the commission, it's kind of a, please do take the time to read through it and offer your input and your suggestions, and let us know where the shortcomings are so that we can take care of it now instead of later. So
all right, I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did read through all of it. I got up to vehicle parking, so I'll finish the rest of that. Deb, let you have any comments. Otherwise, oh, am I muted? Oh, sorry. And but otherwise, I thought it looked great. I mean, it's a lot cleaner to read than the previous version.
Thank you.
Although still think that there's some duplicates. Seem like we're kind of rehash same issues over and over, but we'll worry about that. I guess.
Well, if you don't mind, when you like shoot us an email and kind of point out those specific things, because as you
Okay.
know, when you look at the document so much, you stop seeing stuff like that. And so having the fresh eyes on it is really valuable.
Yeah, when you said about cutting it and put it in pieces, I thought, oh, that's great, because that was my thing, like flipping through the pages, trying to figure out, wait, didn't I just read about that? It would be the location. So
Yeah.
that's how I have to handle it. But I think it looks great.
Okay.
All right, so action items from this evening are Dave and Bill and myself will in sidebar arrange a convenient time to start working on the mooring section. And we'll get input from Tyler. And I think Don Libby expressed interest in participating in that as well. The other thing, Tyler, if you wouldn't mind, we can speak at some point, but let's find a good way to get that link going with all the mooring coordinates entered into it on a Google map. And then we can incorporate that into this document, because that's going to be a significant resource. And
Yeah,
then
and I have,
Yeah.
there was another thing too, Deb. We wanted to be able to, so is the idea here, we'll take comments from everybody right now, and then say in another month, we'll reconvene and with the harbor management plan and try to incorporate those so that the next time we meet, those comments are incorporated?
yeah, or if not right now, if they could, either email comments or get in touch. And I also was wondering what is the best way to receive public input? Do we, should people just send it to the Bruce's email address that's available on the town website and he can forward it to us? What's the best way for any residents who want to participate to do so, to provide input if they don't already have our contact information?
Well, I can forward things obviously from my office address. I cannot communicate with everybody and answer anyone's emails per se when they send them to the office, because that's where I work.
Yeah, but you could forward them on.
I can forward them on comments. I can certainly forward on, and they can comment and participate now in an open meeting. That's why we have it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Should we institute a deadline for comments, just so this doesn't drag on and on? Because without the comments, it's hard for us to continue.
It's a good point, Bill. I don't know, should we give it a week? Is that fair?
Yeah, maybe till the end of this coming week.
Okay. So it's the 3rd. So if everyone could provide comments before the 10th.
That's fair.
Okay.
Try to keep them short and simple and to the point, because there's a lot of reading to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And if anyone, does send, any residents send comments to Bruce, if I'm happy to engage or to answer questions or to, have a conversation. So if you want us to reach out to you, just, leave a number that we should reach you at, or, happy to have a conversation or just receive emails. Doesn't matter to me.
If they send me an email, obviously their email will be on
Yeah.
the connection as well.
Okay. All right. Should we call it a night?
Yes, we should.
And okay, so we